Alright, guys, welcome back to the podcast. I am going to record this general episode or set of episodes. The outline looks a little lengthy, so I'm thinking it might actually take me longer than one episode. So I might kind of break these down. Sorry, I'm drinking water while I'm talking. So the main topic is common religion themes. It's kind of an outline I have about common themes you see across religions and belief systems. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail of talking about which religion, which group thinks about this and where I found the information and all this. I'm going to do it all by memory. So there's not going to be like maybe a whole lot of terminology. I'm mostly going to be talking about probably just like the mainstream religions of things that come to mind, because I don't want it to get too convoluted, but because I know I can take an easy thing and make it into something more complicated than it needs to be. I know I can do that for sure. And it's going to take me off my focus. So the topics I'm going to be covering here are basically, I'll go through what all the topics look like, but I don't know how far I'm going to get in this episode. I feel like I should break it up, because if I don't break it up, it's going to go into like several topics and I might not be able to touch on everything. But also at the moment, my mind is a little bit foggy, so it might be harder for me to kind of just like get the words out. I wrote the outline, but I didn't write the details to the outline. So basically, with this common religion themes outline, I have main themes like themes of creation, right? So themes of creation touch on things like universes, beings, creators, the reason for how we as humans got here. There's the philosophical category of things, where it's, I guess the next categories, other than themes of creation, there's going to be philosophy, social life, health, spiritual practice, afterlife, and then I just have some general questions. But those are what I'm going to be touching on. So I just talked about like the themes of creation, but I would say in addition to that, philosophies like kind of like about good and evil, about how prophets kind of come in and change things sometimes. So you see the shift between the ancient and the modern, because a lot of religions, there are newer ones too, but a lot of religions are kind of older. And then you see how things have changed over time. Also, under philosophies, I want to talk about control. So control would be something like, what you're kind of taught, kind of based on good and evil, and based on kind of what prophetic kind of teachings happen and things like that. Based on all that, just kind of what it is exactly that you like, that the religion is saying in attempts to control how you socially do things, how you think about good and evil, how you make your choices in life, how you can consider something healthy versus not healthy, the kind of spiritual practices that you might lead according to those theories and ideas and beliefs given to you, and kind of like what you think of the afterlife. All of that is kind of connected to control. Now, not all religions are really there seeming like they're going to control you, but I would say control is definitely a factor when looking at religion, that I think a lot of people, when they're in the religion, they wouldn't call it control. But I feel like, I'll get into it, but I feel like almost every person who's in a religion, for the most part, has something that's in that religion that just there's something that doesn't resonate with them, you know? Like, I've talked about it a lot, but I grew up in a religious community of people, and, you know, in LA, so it's not like I had no access to like any other types of people to be around. But I did kind of notice, this discrepancy between, how people from the church and the religion kind of talked about themselves. They talked themselves up, and as a whole talked about the religion and everyone who's part of the religion as being like maybe better and living like better and having like a better way of doing things than everyone else out there. Look how much everybody else is suffering is because they're not doing things right. We're doing them right. That's why we are happy and going to be happier, people because of how we are. And I kind of realized a lot of times, the not that I didn't like the social life, because I did, but I kind of always had it in the back of my mind like, man, I can't wait till the day that I don't have to interact with people that are shallow, backstabbing, gossiping kind of people. I was really looking forward to, when I could go to college and meet different people, or kind of like once I could drive, or like what it was going to look like when I was getting older. I already knew that, when I want to meet new people, I want it to be more, I want it to be more open minded, genuine, authentic types of relationships. Like, of course, I wasn't saying like, oh, I need someone to be perfect. I need like that everything these people have done to me, everything I've experienced was bad and like everyone else is better. I mean, no, like I've mentioned, I feel like I didn't firsthand experience a lot of this stuff. Like, it was just more like feared. Like, I feared experiencing these negative things. Like, there was kind of like in the background, like, ooh, I don't want to be that person that others are gossiping about. And if they were gossiping about me, I don't know if I knew. And I did have a friend that kind of told me a couple times that somebody had brought up my name in some situation, about some situations that they were maybe unhappy about me being involved with. And that good friend of mine told me about that. And that was when I was, when they were telling me about, what this pastor person had said. So it was a pastor that was not talking crap, at least the way that they made it sound, not talking crap, but they did mention a situation. And I basically, it was two times, and I basically messaged that pastor. I apologized, but I was kind of just like, hey, um, sorry if your neighbor wasn't, sorry if I got it wrong about some kind of situation that happened with your neighbor, or whatever it may be. Sorry about that, like, um, but I wasn't trying to like, I kind of thought I saw something and kind of alerted this pastor, and the pastor kind of didn't think, like, didn't, like, I guess they kind of went against their um best judgment, because they didn't want to call security about a situation that I was like, hey, you should call security. As I was walking out one day, I had kind of like thought that I was witnessing something going wrong, but I was like, well, I'm leaving, so, and it's your apartment, so you can call security. And then they called, and security came, and I guess they got in the middle of one of my pastor's neighbors breaking up with the girlfriend, or trying to not break up with the girlfriend, and it seems like the girlfriend wanted to leave or whatever. And because they got involved in that, and then, they kind of blamed my pastor, I guess, for their breakup, and was like, I don't ever want to talk to you again, and that kind of thing. Like, I never really knew what came of it, but they never told me what happened. But I guess they decided to tell a group of people when I wasn't there, and one of my close friends was there in the group and kind of overheard that conversation and was like, hey, they were kind of talking about saying that they wish that they had never called security and all that. But I was like, were they actually talking about me? I don't really know, but they probably mentioned something around that. They might have mentioned that that's what I said, or maybe my friend was kind of softening it. I don't really know for sure, but yeah, that same pastor had some other thing to say that I don't remember what it was, but I mean, yeah, so I was kind of like, that friend kind of told me, and I wouldn't have known otherwise, but I did, by email confront that person that was saying those things, and I was like, I didn't, I am sorry that, that I didn't know what the situation was, and like, like, I just thought I was in passing doing the right thing. I didn't really think twice about it. I wasn't trying to get him in trouble. I wasn't trying to like make him have issues with his neighbor or whatever. But yeah, so how, yeah, I guess maybe he didn't know how I found that out, but obviously somebody told me because I wasn't there the night that he decided to mention it. He never mentioned it to my face. But this person also was kind of, I'll be honest, he was kind of a jerk. A lot of people had issues with him. But that was kind of the stuff, honestly, that I had the most problem with. It wasn't necessarily all the other stuff, because I did study a lot of the stuff that the religion taught. I would study it by myself and kind of get my own opinions on it, and then we definitely had an environment where we could have a lot of heated or even just like in-depth conversations about these topics, about different topics surrounding what the religious beliefs were and everything. And so I was usually able to kind of come to an understanding for myself of kind of what I felt was best for me, and I could kind of take or leave the other stuff. But I feel like most people do have something that they're like, this doesn't resonate with me. And for me, it wasn't really necessarily what was being taught and all that kind of stuff. It was more so what was being let go. Like, people would just let it go that there was all this gossiping and just kind of people. It wasn't really a safe space. I don't feel like it was, but like I kind of witnessed that more like secondhand. I didn't really witness it firsthand. But I thought that I would probably witness it firsthand. And so I was usually pretty concerned about like what people might know about me or what they might not know about me. That was definitely something I grew up with, and I think to me that was probably the most impacting thing, more than all the weird kind of things and how things were interpreted and all the kind of weird. Every religion has stuff about it that's kind of weird. Like, religions are strange. Sometimes they just have all kinds of stuff about them that's just like, what on earth, you know what I mean? So yeah. So other categories would be like social life, dating, family, work, education. That's all under social life. Under health, food, finances, medical care, spiritual practices, worship, rituals, that kind of thing. Afterlife, like how it is decided where you go after you die, what happens after death, and then some general questions like, why do most religions have a creation process and an afterlife process that seems to take place in or from another universe? Like, there's always like this other universe, this other worldly place being involved. Whether that's someone going into the sky somewhere, or into a ground somewhere, or into some other spiritual level, and why that's always seen as like the sky a lot of times. Like it's out there, it's off this planet, it's somewhere out there, somewhere far away, or whatever. Like why there's always that happening. In most creation stories or afterlife stories, or many of them, anyways. Maybe not most, but many. There's always some kind of, beings who created humans for the most part. That's very common. Uh, Afterlife being based on, how a person lives their life. And so that's another common theme, that, the way you live your life determines, what happens in the afterlife sometimes. Or who you are as a person, like what group of people you're born into might determine that too. Uh, uh, there's usually like this purpose of life. This purpose of living the life that the culture teaches. Like there's some deeper purpose to like why you need to follow these rules. Because every religion has these different rules that are like, well, our rules are better than those rules, so you have to follow our rules. Like people who go to church on Sunday will say, well, we, because these other commandments have been done away with, we don't have to stick strictly to this, Sabbath in the Bible. We don't really do that. And then people who stick to the Sabbath in the Bible are like, well, those people are wrong because the Bible doesn't say anything about church on Sundays, and we know why it changed over to that day, why most people eventually started going to church on Sundays, and so they're wrong. And like there can be these debates about all kinds of stuff, but usually a lot of religions have some explanation for like how come their version of what they say is more right than a version of what somebody else said. And then rituals, for the religions with rituals, it's like what's the purpose of doing them? Like do they make you holier? Do they cleanse you? Do they give you some kind of extra ability or strength or capability or positivity? Or why do you not do certain things? Is it gonna like limit your ability to go to a better place after life versus a worse place? So I'm gonna delve into some of this. I would say I'm going to start at the beginning of all that and start with talking about basically the themes of creation. So themes of creation, talking about universes, beings, creators, reasons for how we get here, and some of these questions towards the end too, like a creation process that happens, from another universe, or a being coming from another universe, and how humans get created and all that kind of stuff. So I would say most religions have an idea of why humans are here on this earth. So a lot of religions believe that there was some kind of conflict with some other form of beings before humans even existed. There was some kind of conflict going on. That there was some world that was happening, out there outside of Earth, where there were beings that were, some of them created. So in some stories, those beings came down to Earth and created humans, or they created humans somewhere, or created some portion of humans, or some portion of something that turned into humans. I would say that's most of the creation stories that I've heard, is that somebody or something somewhere created something that became humans or directly created humans, or had like some kind of process that they went through. Like I think in Islam, it's like a blood clot, um, you know, and the blood clot was created into a human eventually by God. Um, I think in the Navajo origin story, the Dene people, I think it's, you know, from a bamboo shoot. Like the nation of people was created from a bamboo shoot. And we all know in Christianity that it's believed that God came down from heaven or from somewhere and made this decision to create Earth and then eventually create humans. So it's not an uncommon theme that there was something before. Even if you look at stories of evolution, the Big Bang, there was something before. There was something that existed that when it all combined, somehow it created the Big Bang. Like, that means, physics was already in place, some form of universe of some kind was already in place. Whether or not it was organized, who knows? But there was already something. And so I don't know of many, and I could be wrong. I just don't know. I'm saying I literally don't know. I'm not saying I don't know as in like there aren't any, but I don't know of any belief systems that choose a date and say this is when there was nothing before this date and then all of a sudden there was something. Like, yeah, they'll focus on humans being born, but it's like, even if you look at the story of, like, the origin story of the Navajo, if humans came from a bamboo shoot, it's like, well, where'd the bamboo shoot come from? It's like a lot of cultures have these beliefs of there was something before humans existed. We didn't just form out of nothing. And even if we did form out of something, or if we formed out of nothing, there was usually something else that was roaming around out there before we even existed. That's usually a pretty common theme. And even if it's not God, as in with evolution, I consider evolution a religion, but even if there's not God, or at least it's a belief system, I don't know. But, if there's no God, in evolution, there was something that created the laws so that whatever needed to happen for the Big Bang to happen, that took place. That ability was there. Like, there was a possibility for a Big Bang to even happen, if that makes sense. Like, if there's nothing at all, if nothing exists anywhere, no gases, no forms of anything, no, absolutely no nothing. If there's nothing out there, then, I mean, I think most belief systems focus on, there was something happening before humans. Something usually intelligent, something that knew more than what we know. And we started from a place where we as humans had to kind of like start learning. And, there's a lot of stories that go further into that where it's like whatever that entity was started teaching humans how to like be the way that we need to be so that we could be sustaining ourselves. usually by living off the land to some extent. Um, I think it's really hard to talk about these topics um, kind of like as parallel stories because they're all so different. So that's why I said like I can't really go into detail with every single one because it's just too much to try to go like, okay, this religion believes this one believes this one believes that. Um, but there are definitely groups of people that believe outside of these things. Um, some even believing in other types of planets and or having a different view about Earth. It's a lot. There's just a lot of belief systems out there. And the reason why I like thinking about it is because it is very easy to get warped in, you know? It's easy to get warped into one belief and being like, well, this is the one I was taught or this is the one I came across that makes sense to me. And it's like the thing that I love and find so interesting is that somebody else can believe something completely opposite and believe and think just as hard as I do about their belief system as I do about mine, thinking that theirs is so right and mine is so wrong. And I might think that theirs is so wrong and mine is so right, you know, and ultimately nobody knows because none of us was there. And so, you know, we're kind of left with this whole like, well, I wasn't there to firsthand witness it, so I just got to trust what somebody else said that that's what happened. And there does tend to be some desire for people to believe that there was something first. And there also seems to be more desire for people to want to be interactive with whatever that is, whatever that source of life was or is. And there's also these beliefs that there's a purpose why we're here. I mean, that's one thing that kind of gets me. And I'm not saying I do or don't believe something. I'm not really talking about what I believe or not believe, but I'm just saying, I'm not even going to say that I don't believe in a religion. I try not to really talk about it too much because, you know, I don't think it matters what I believe. I'm just talking about topics. But yeah, I think when it comes to purpose, a lot of us want to believe that there's a purpose in what we do, a purpose in how we learn, you know, a purpose in what we're doing here, you know? Like, why this planet, why is it so perfectly placed in orbit, you know, like, for us to be able to live here for however many generations, and knowing that we cannot stay here forever. I mean, generations, eventually the sun is going to swallow all the planets. So once it becomes a black hole, I mean, even far before then, but the sun is no longer going to be able to give us a source of light. And, you know, I mean, I guess technically we could artificially survive, but I don't know how good we would do without the sun. We kind of need the sun. Like, I don't know if humans can really exist without the sun being there. And the sun is really old. The sun is, I don't know the age of the sun, but it's really freaking old. And so it's like the sun was there before the humans arrived. The sun was there before everything arrived. Like, I don't think there's any story out there that says, you know, um, that says different things, that the sun wasn't there. Like, it wasn't like humans were on the earth, like freezing, and the earth was just like ice and cold, and all of a sudden the sun appears and we're able to kind of like function. Like, it didn't work that direction. Like, usually the sun was already there, you know. That's not really a question. And but you know, the sun will not always be there. If it follows the natural, you know, state of a star, you know, it's eventually gonna cease to exist. And so, and you know, eventually stars become black holes, and eventually it will swallow everything. And so we already know humans aren't going to be here for eternity, and we already know that there was a point where we weren't existing. And then when we look at past generations, it's like, well, what was their purpose? You know, what were they doing? You know, like, there's definitely a lot of repetition that you see. And there's also a lot of advances that you see, like technological advances and things that can't really be explained, like the pyramids and all sorts of things, where it's like, you know, there's some stuff out there that's more technologically advanced at time periods that we can't explain why it was there, because we're always being taught that linearly people got smarter and better at stuff. And so the further you go back in time, the less advanced tools and thinking were, the less advanced philosophies were, the less advanced mathematics were, beliefs in physics and astronomy and all these things. Those are more modern, you know, ideas. And I think it's to support these theories that, you know, it has to work out in a way. I mean, I hate to say it, but it does have to work out in a way that the European bloodline is the one who's coming up with all the most advanced stuff first. Like, we can't have, in human history, we can't have Africans and Middle Easterners and all these other people having these advanced civilizations. It's like, no, those people were living with sticks and rocks in the dirt until eventually, you know, we had like the Platos and you know, all the Greek philosophers and all these other like advanced styles of thinking, that other people weren't thinking like that before these people were, which that's not accurate. Like, there are definitely advanced groups of people on probably every continent if you think about it. But we don't really get to hear those stories a lot unless maybe you're from there, but usually in our Western society, it's kind of erased almost, and we're kind of taught this other method of things. And I do think that's partially why, you know, religion kind of goes in the direction it seems to go in. But it's kind of fascinating though that like, religion has been around, maybe not in a very organized way, but religion has been around for a very long time. And I know anthropologists teach that religion, like, there was a pre-religion period, and I don't know if that means that people didn't have spiritual practices and beliefs of what they thought was going on. Because there does seem to be a lot of rituals that people were doing, even with like cave paintings and that show different types of stuff. So I don't really know. I don't really know where I'm going with all that. But that's just kind of where my head goes with it all. So yeah, when it comes to themes of creation, that's kind of most of what I wanted to touch on. I'll touch on next kind of like philosophies, but yeah, when it comes to, you know, those types of themes about creation, why we're here, how we got here, often there's like this understanding that there were something happened from outside of Earth that came to Earth. I mean, I just like compiling different forms of stories because it is kind of easy to kind of think about, okay, every group is so different and like, we have the truth and they don't have the truth and all this kind of stuff. But when you look at it like big picture and just like zoom out and look big scope, overall, most religions kind of believe the same thing when it comes to the beginning of human existence. Like, even if you think about groups that don't believe in God, of any kind, like atheist, Christian Science, Christian, not Christian scientists, but I don't know what Christian scientists believe, but Scientologists, I meant to say. They don't necessarily believe in a God that you would be worshiping or anything like that, but they believe that, there was stuff that happened before humans got here. And humans are a certain type of being or type of a shell that is housing and allowing a certain type of being to express itself or be out there. There are other beings involved, or even if it's not beings involved, it's just sheer scientific and physics and science that created a big bang, and that got the ball rolling with all these different things that eventually form into humans. But either way, something happened out there that contributed to what happens here on Earth from the very beginning. And either it's not involved at all, it's not a being, it is a being, and it is involved. It is a being, and it was involved, but now it's not involved. Or maybe it's coming back. Or maybe it sees and hears and knows everything you think and sense. Or maybe it's just like aliens passing through that were like, hey, this would be cool to make this whole thing. Or maybe it's like a constant simulation. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of different ways that people can kind of talk about what happens. But I would say overall, most religions that I know about, and I don't know about every single religion, but there are a lot of creation religions out there that believe that there was some form of creation of humans, and that there's some kind of purpose of why we're here, and that the purpose comes from something that happened outside that got us to get here. The purpose isn't from within us. We didn't will ourselves into existence. The purpose comes from some outer thing that wasn't even on this planet in the first place and got us to where we are now. So I don't know why most groups would believe that. In their own specific ways, but it is a common theme. Or there's something like, some form of reincarnation that I'm not too well acquainted with actually what reincarnation looks like. I feel like I know just like basic one sentence, that depending on how you live your life now, you can be reborn, you can come back after death as another living type of thing. And that's how come there's all types of living things, is because somebody or something somewhere died and came back as another thing. I don't know where the first things came from. I don't know that those theories and beliefs very well. I don't know if there's a belief that there was something that was initially created that created all of them, and then the cycle just continues of things just turning into other stuff. I don't really know. I don't know where the exact beginning of that comes from. But yeah, so that's kind of all I have to say about that. I'm gonna jump into the next segment. I don't know what I'm gonna be posting these, honestly. I'm recording these on April 29th, 2023. Not all of them, but I'm recording at least this one. And I'll see when I record the others.